Oh my goodness, Damon Pistolka, we're live. How are you
Yes,
today?
I'm great, Nicole, and we're ready to go. It's another great week, and we're starting off with Monday motivation.
Monday motivation. So exciting. Yep, we're missing Kurt today. Kurt, we wish you could be here with us, but we are so excited to have the amazing Dianna Huff with Huff Industrial Marketing. And we also have her counterpart, Rachel, here, who's the owner of Created Designs. And Rachel and Dianna just have this really cool and exciting partnership and love what all that they're doing to support industrial manufacturers and can't wait to dive into this conversation. So how are you doing today, Damon? How are you doing? What's going on with you?
Great. The Seahawks won yesterday, so that's a good thing for us up here in the Northwest. And it's the time of winter time, so it's good for God, getting ready for the holidays already. I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. It's
coming around. It's coming around.
And Dianna and Rachel, how are you guys doing? What's going on in your world today?
It's cold.
And you live in New Hampshire. How do you like the cold? You must love it.
I'm from California, so
I've
adjusted, but it's cold. It's cold, and you all know I have the dog who has to go out no matter what. So I feel like I've purchased half of LL Bean, and so I can walk them. And I'm out there this morning.
That's so funny. I grew up in California too, Dianna, and I moved to the East Coast after college and have been here ever since. So I can totally relate. I feel like even though I've lived here for 20 years, I still get freezing cold. It doesn't matter. It's like you can take the girl out of California, but you can't take the California out of the girl. Yes. And Rachel is like a completely on the other side of the world. She's down in New Zealand. So tell us what's it like down there, Rachel?
For some opposite measure, it's heading into summer here, so nice and warm and longer days. So yeah, Dianna and I often share stories of opposites.
Yes.
Very nice.
So cool.
Well, so while she's wearing sweaters, you're wearing shorts. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I think we usually kick off the show and ask a question. So I'm going to honor Kurt here. This is a question he always asks, and I'll ask it to both of you. We'll start with Dianna. Dianna, when you were a little girl growing up in California, who was your hero?
Well, it's hard. I did a lot of reading. Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love her.
I read her books repeatedly growing up. I read all of them. And actually I think it was 2014, I drove from New Hampshire to Missouri and visited the Laura Ingalls Wilder house.
Very nice.
Yeah, and all the stuff that's in the books is in that museum.
Yeah.
So I made that drive by myself. It was an amazing trip.
Very, very cool. So which little house is your favorite? Or do you have a favorite?
You mean of the books?
Yes.
Farmer Boy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, so
and I've seen that house too. I drove up to New York and saw the Almanzo Wilder house that he grew up in, the farm.
Yeah. Oh,
wow.
I loved her books too when I was a kid. Just the resilience and the family focus and everything was just
and the grit and the determination. They never gave up.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's what it was very inspiring. It was very, very part of my formative years. That's such a cool answer. I love it. So you strike me as a reader, like you love to read. You probably
Rachel is the only person I've met who reads as much and as fast as I do.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, let's turn it over to Rachel. Rachel, it's your turn.
Mine is also a literary character, but mine's a character. Growing up, Anne of Green Gables was my favorite book series.
Oh my gosh! You guys were best friends.
Kindred spirits.
Oh my gosh, I love Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
I liked Anne of Green Gables, not the author, but the actual Anne character.
Yeah, and when I was 12, I had the opportunity to go to Prince Edward Island and see everything. So for you, like you, Dianna, it's lovely to be able to go and see real places that have been written about.
Oh,
Yeah, so cool.
Anna Gables is another amazingly resilient character. I adored all those books when I was a kid too. And I went to see the house too on Prince Edward Island, and it's such a special place. Like the location of it is so beautiful. It's like
It felt so magical. It didn't let me down when I saw it. I was a little nervous that perhaps, the world in my imagination was not as beautiful, but no, it was the opposite.
Oh,
That's always awesome.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So we got some people that are dropping by today too already, Nicole. We got Deo and Antonio and Dan Bigger. And
Dan, it's great
Dan's
to see
here
you.
today.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
Watching from
Awesome.
Bangladesh. We're international.
Oh yeah.
Watching from Nigeria.
Yes.
Very
Yes,
nice.
thanks so much for stopping by today.
International manufacturing e-commerce success. Very nice.
Yes, there we go.
Well, I would love to hear a little bit more about how you two got to know each other because, Rachel's all the way down in New Zealand. Dianna, you're from California, New Hampshire. Like, how did the two of you connect and how long have you guys been partnering together?
So we've been working together since 2010. And before I met Rachel, I was a freelance. I was DH Communications and I was doing freelance copywriting. And over time, I had been picking up these gigs to write website content. And I would work with different website designers. And I decided to start project managing these projects myself. So I was, and also at that time, WordPress was starting to come in. And I worked with a designer who said he could do WordPress websites. And the site he did was so bad that the client called me and chewed me out. I was almost in tears. And
no.
the way he had customized it was he had just added clip art. The client was furious, and this was all new to me. And then I had another experience that was equally as bad. And I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to find somebody who knows how to do design in WordPress. And I did all this searching, and there's got to be a way to do it. I tried to see if I could do it myself. I'm like, no, I can't do this myself. So I started calling website designers that I found in Google. And everyone said, yes, I can do website design in WordPress, but they really couldn't. They didn't know design, or they didn't know WordPress. They didn't know both. So I just kept going through Google, and I finally hit on the creative design website. And I looked at it. I'm like, oh, she's in New Zealand. Oh, I don't know. Can I do this? Oh, I don't know. So I called. She had an American phone number, a US phone number. So I called, and she has a different memory, but my memory is grilling her. Can you do design inside WordPress? She's like, and she has a beautiful accent. Yes. And so she did, I think it was the dentist website you did first. She did a website for one of my customers, and it was so wonderful and so awesome that I never looked back. And so that was in 2010. And then we just kept doing more projects together. And now she is the only designer that I work with. So we, because of that, we become very tightly integrated. So even though she's her own company, and she's actually the designer to some of the top food bloggers in the world, she is the only designer that I will work with. And then she brings her brother, Stephen Merriman, who does all the programming or coding. So we are a very tight-knit team. So we have a whole process and everything. But that's how we met, Google. And I've been to New Zealand, and she's been here. She's been to East Tech 3 times with me, and IMTS.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing relationship. It's almost 13 years that you guys have been working together.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think the wonderful thing is even though she's 9,000 miles away, I can write stuff, and I give her a Google Doc, and she's able to take all my words and turn it into the website that I see in my head. We have a wonderful collaborative relationship. It's wonderful.
Oh man,
that is so cool.
I love that. So what do you see are the strengths that complement each other as you guys have been working together? Like, what are some of Rachel's strengths that you feel fill in the gap for you, Dianna, and vice versa?
So with Rachel, she's a statistician. So that's her background, master's degree, correct, Rachel, in statistics. And she used to teach at University of Auckland. So she brings a lot of data science to projects. So she keeps me in check. She's again, the collaborativeness, very open to ideas. We often have Zoom calls where we talk things through. And then, of course, the design, very creative. But the other thing is because she works with all these food bloggers, so they are in the, how many did you say? Hundreds of thousands of website views? I think you said
10 million a month.
Million, yeah. So she has all this data. So when she tells me, I've already tested this, I know what works or what doesn't, I listen to her.
Yes.
So, and because I work with smaller manufacturers who have, well, as I said in my Matoma presentation, small data, very small data. And so it's harder to test things. So she knows what's going on. And plus she just does beautiful design. I mean, you go look at her food blogs and you almost want to eat all the food.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And Rachel, what do you think? What's it been like working with Dianna? What do you think? How does she complement you? And what do you love about that collaboration?
Yeah, I think the first thing is from a designer and a statistician point of view, I love all sorts of challenges. But initially when I came to manufacturing, I thought, gosh, it's really heavy, technical, dry content. And, it often is I'm not an engineer, so I don't understand some of the terms. But what Dianna does is she really transforms all those complex ideas into something that's accessible for a broader audience, which is what's needed on a website. Yes, there will be engineers who are coming and they can find the TDSs and things that are on the website. But I think that's really been a skill that you can turn, if you're a really good writer, you can turn any content into something that's interesting and accessible and usable for people.
Yes,
So
that's what Ogilvy said. There are no boring products, only boring writers.
I love that. Ogilvy, such a classic. So amazing. So let's go back down memory lane a little bit more. Let's go back further. Dianna, I remember the first time you and I met and you told me this cool story about how you used to work with Brian Halligan, who was the co-founder of HubSpot. And I remember
That's a long time ago.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But tell us a little bit about what led you down this path. How did you get started in marketing and what led you to kind of start your business? And then I'd love, Rachel, for you to chime in and share on your end too.
Yep. So I actually, when I got started, I used to make sales for sailboats in college. That's how I put myself through college. So I was actually a production worker. Yep.
Yeah.
And I knew how to sew from high school home ec class. So I used to sew sales and the bags that the sales went into. And I did that for 5 years. And then after the sail making, I worked for Precision Technical Sewing in Palo Alto, California, which was a small woman-owned business where we did technical sewing for military and aerospace, and we did all this work for all these companies in Silicon Valley, including Silicon Graphics, which is now what Google. It's the Google complex. So this was way pre-Google, and I lived in Mountain View, so I used to live like 3 blocks from where Google is, and completely different place now. But anyway, I worked for 7 years for PTS, and that's where I learned everything. Because I was the office manager, I learned everything about how to run a small office, manufacturing, because we did all this work for military. We had all this mil-spec stuff. This was in the days of those big Thomas registers, the big green ones. There was no internet.
Yes.
I answered 4 phone lines. And actually, that's how it's funny, because we would advertise in all of these yellow pages throughout the Bay Area. And I would keep track when people called. I'd say, how did you hear about us? however, oh, I found you in the yellow pages. Well, which directory? So that when the ad person came, the sales rep, I was able to say, no, that book doesn't work, or we need a bigger ad. And she was astounded. She said, no one does this. She said, you're the first person to, so I guess like the marketing was bred in the bone, right? So, so then from PTS, I went to Varian, which was, now I went corporate, Fortune 500. And for 2.5 years, I was there. And I was the Marcom rep for nuclear magnetic resonance and analytical instruments. And what's so funny, I was just thinking before the call, that was where I did my first website. Not that I did it, but I worked with a designer because NMR had created their own web page with all the Varian branding, with the corporate people going having heart attacks, and the guy had put Christmas lights across the top that blinked.
Oh my!
Remember those days with the counter, the little website counter? So that was one of the first websites that we helped, because we had to redo it. We couldn't let that stand. But then from Varian, then I went out. Then my husband at the time, he moved back. He was from here. We moved back east because he got a job. I had my son, and I didn't want to keep him in daycare because he was in there, 50 hours a week. So I woke up one morning, I'm going out on my own. And so I did DH Communications from 1998 to 2013. And now I'm Huff Industrial Marketing.
Man, that's amazing. So you have been an entrepreneur for 25 years.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
I always love the stories too, your story, the history, and how just, especially like yourself, where you saw pre-website to now, it's just pre-internet now. I mean, there's very few of us that have that experience in marketing, but the fundamentals still carry through. Like where are you getting like when you were talking about the yellow page ads, which yellow page ad actually got us a call,
Yes.
That's simple. Still carries true.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
Rachel, what about you?
Yeah.
Talk about your entrepreneurial journey. How did you end up where you are, and what kind of inspired you to want to move in this direction?
Yeah, so before working with Dianna, I started out in the early 2000s lecturing and doing research at the University of Auckland here down in New Zealand. And I really got excited about statistics, but and also sort of statistics in the media. So that was my field of like thinking about lies, damned lies, and statistics. And the second thing that really interests me, I've always had too many interests to try and they somehow piece together, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's been online learning. And so back in 2001, 2002, that was actually quite a new space for universities to be moving into. So we were getting forums going, starting using chat messenger to talk with students, to get help to them, and then started blogging. And in 2002 was when I really got into blogging, and it was a very early pre-WordPress.
Wow.
Something called Movable Type.
Yeah, I remember Movable Type.
Yeah, and a few other tools were out there, and they were all sort of competing for which blogging tool would work the best. And it was a really small community of bloggers back then, really small. We knew all the big players in New Zealand and in Australia, and a bunch in the States and Canada as well. And I started just because of just more for my own interest, designing, because I knew coding as a background as well, designing some simple blogs and helping people, because I think originally the tools were made by coders, not by designers at all. And so I was doing some really innovative things there. I started getting some small jobs while working at the university, and the university loved me actually expanding my interest, and because it actually helped inform my day job as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the cool things sort of were to do with blogs just really attracting a big audience all of a sudden overnight. And some of the early ones were the Olympics. We were running Olympic blogs, and also entertainment. So that's like the American Idols of the world type of thing. Suddenly, overnight, you have a massive audience of people wanting to talk. Now, this is before Facebook, right? So this is where people were coming to talk about TV online.
And Project Runway. There were those two guys that had that blog. Remember that one?
I didn't follow that one, but I'm sure it was.
Yeah, they had a massive following.
Yeah.
Massive, yeah.
And so we were getting hundreds of thousands of visitors. And, you know, so we were at the forefront of how do you make money with blogs? Because this thing is becoming pretty big. What do we do with it? But also just that kind of gold rush initial feel of this is a new space. There was a lot of freedom of expression. So I loved all that. And I got the attention of some pretty big names like TechCrunch. I was one of their first blog designers working with TechCrunch, ProBlogger, and a few other people. And through that, I got a lot of interest from Americans and people worldwide that here's someone who knows design and blogging. So that's sort of how it got started. You know, the university was one of the first ones who did a blog talking about statistics in the media. So making it accessible to a wider audience about here's some headline. And instead of the professors all sitting in their offices at coffee breaks saying, my goodness, the newspaper did it again. You know, they don't understand how to understand DNA court results. You know, they mess it all up. Here's the probabilities. So let's package it up and make it accessible to a wider audience. So that's, I think, been my heart. And you heard that when I was talking about what Dianna's skill is. It's, you know, transforming knowledge that you have into something that's accessible for others. I think that's the really lovely thing about blogging. You can see, you know, why food blogs took off in the pandemic. People needed somewhere to go to get inspiration for their meals.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, to be there from the beginning of blogging, I'm just super curious. There's been such a change when it comes to blogging from those early days to blogging now. What is your perspective on blogging then versus now, and what the future of blogging looks like?
Mm-hmm. It has evolved an awful lot. And I think some of the original bloggers still reminisce about the good old days where all the comments were contained on the blog. And then there are the new bloggers who accept that everything is fragmented now. So commenting is happening through email, through chat, social media, through Facebook, through the blogs, all over the place. So it's way more of a machine now than it ever used to be. It used to be sort of very all in one place, very tight. Now it's if you're a blogger in general, you've got to have all these platforms covered, not just one.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a reminiscing for those simple old days when it was just your blog. And I think that's why Medium and Substack have really taken off, because they've gone back to kind of the basics of let's just write. And for not everybody, they don't need everything. They just want to write and get their ideas out into the world.
I love that. And I think you make a really good point about omni-channel, that today you have like it was so much simpler then, but now if you're going to blog, not only do you need to blog, but you're going to need to share it in other channels, you know, break out your blog, if you will, and share it on your social channels and, you know, start conversations that way. That's an interesting point about Medium and Substack too. Very cool.
It had to be, looking back, it had to be so much fun being in that early stages of blogging, though, because it was literally, like you said, the gold rush when people would boom.
Yeah,
I
had a blog, and I first had my website, and I started doing SEO in 2001, and that's how I generated all my leads. And it worked. It did really well. Talking about the good old days. I mean, it was really good. All I did was optimize around Marcom copywriter, and all these leads came in, and then SEO B2B SEO copy. But then I had a blog, and I think it was around 2005 or 2006. The blog eclipsed the website. I never, and at the time they were two separate entities, you know, and the blog was getting far more traffic. And I mean, talk about the good old days. I remember, it was some website, some publisher, they named my blog, The Marcom Writer, one of the top B2B blogs of the decade. You know, and I was like, wow. But you know, now like people would say, who's she?
She's Dianna and she's amazing.
No, but those were the good old days.
Yeah.
They were. And it was so much fun. It was just fun. And you knew people and you left comments on people's blogs and they would leave comments on your blogs. I met so many fun and nice people through blogging.
Oh, that's interesting. It's kind of like blogging was what social media is now, what community is becoming. Like people are building these communities. We got a comment here from Alexander Smazuk. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Now we need to talk about vlogs. People are not reading so much as it was. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's complementary. It's actually broadening the audience. It's not, so there's a certain type of people who will read, there's a certain type of people who will watch. And, you know, just like with podcast, you can listen to it, you can watch it, you can read a transcript. Let's just provide people all sorts of options and different needs for different people.
Oh, you're so right. You got to meet them where they are. That's great marketing. Meet them where they are. I'm a reader. I would much rather read it than watch it for sure. So, but there's a lot of people these days that prefer to watch, and that short form video is becoming huge. So.
And the other thing is every video now has subtitles or captions along the bottom, because there are many people who have their sound off, or it's, you know, they don't want, they're still reading, even on the vlog.
Yes, that's a great point.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just watching a video this morning, a TED Talk. I was like, I just want to read the transcript.
Right, because you could read it faster.
Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. Go ahead, Dan.
That's really interesting because I notice it in my kids who are in their mid to late 20s, right? They watch a lot of YouTube, but when they're watching TV, they like the subtitles turned on, just regular television. So if you're on Netflix or something, they like Netflix because they like to be able to read along with it. And I thought that was really strange because to me, it's annoying when you're watching a television show.
I hate captions.
Oh, yeah. But it's on all the time in my house now because of this.
That's interesting.
And it is. You talk about the transcription, and I think it's just an evolution of understanding that we can watch video without the sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool.
It's true. My brother's really big on the subtitles when he watches any show, even if it's in English, you know. And it's interesting because when I watch shows with him, I know now I'm like, I want to do this because you pick up things that you read the subtitles that you don't hear properly if you're just hearing it. And you read it, and so you get a lot more. I think you catch a lot more that way. Huh. Yeah. Interesting. Well, so let's talk about like, how do you guys? I love this question. How do each of you and your company make the world a better place? What is it about your company, Dianna?
Nice.
That you feel has made the world better?
Well, Rachel's already given me enough send up about transforming complex technical concepts into accessible content. But what I do, so when I started Huff Industrial Marketing in 2014, I knew I wanted to work with industrial manufacturers. So I did what I always do. I went to find books to learn more about what's going on in manufacturing. And I happened upon these two books put out by the Alliance for American Manufacturing, which is a nonprofit. And the first one was, it was all of these articles about what had happened to U.S. manufacturing, about all the offshoring and whole industries leaving our country. And I mean, I just remember my jaw dropping, you know, like every other page, like, and all these underlines and dog ears. And so after I read that book, I said, and not knowing what I was getting myself into, I said, okay, all right, I'm going to make a commitment to buy Made in USA whenever I can, not knowing.
Yes.
So that's how it started in 2015. So I remember my first trip to Home Depot, reading all the labels going, oh my God, like a whole display of tools made in China. And that's when I realized how bad it was. And I said, okay, if I'm going to work with US manufacturers, then I need to support what they're doing. And I need to buy Made in USA as much as I can. Obviously, you can't do it for everything. I mean, I'm on a MacBook. So, but I said I'm going to do that, and I didn't really talk about it. Over time, I just started talking about it, and the more I talked about it on LinkedIn, the more traction. I would do a marketing post. I would do a Made in USA post, and I'd get all this traction, and people would say yes, and all sorts of things. And so I don't know if you can see it.
Cool.
My customer, Brandon Acker from Titan Abrasive, he sent that to me. He said, since you're the queen of Made in USA, you need this in your office. And it's made by a service disabled veteran down in South Carolina. So, but that's what I do. I tell people about products that are made here. I buy as much as I can. And, that's how I support American manufacturing. And and then I have my blog, Keep It Made in the USA. So I write about what I'm learning, and that's how I'm giving back.
I love it. We've got some comments coming in from Jennifer.
Yes.
I purchased
Dollar Tree. I didn't think Dollar Tree would be a good place.
I didn't either, but thinking about them from my knowledge of them, they probably are. That's good.
You have to be very intentional. You do. And it is hard. I mean, this is not made in the USA. It's hard to find clothes. Only 3% of clothing, apparel is made here. So you do what you can.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see a lot of the reshoring coming back. There's been a big, I hope that continues. I hope that,
yes, me too.
Really continues. That's very exciting. And I do love and appreciate your Made in USA posts. It's really cool to see some of the details of the fun stuff that you find and how it's very intentional.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. I enjoy writing about them. And I want to, I got to get reconnected with my blog again. The dog took a lot of time out of me.
I can imagine. Yes. Dan says he's going to send something of theirs.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And then Adam Baker says, would have never thought Dollar Tree. Who would have known? So,
I know. Yep.
That's a great.
Well, Rachel, how do you feel about American Made? No, just kidding. What makes you, what is it that you feel like how your company is making a difference in the world? What inspires
you? I will say that it's very inspiring to see people get excited about American Made. New Zealand, we had the same sort of thing in the 1980s when the floodgates of imports came into our country. That's the thing. I think, seeing manufacturers and people getting excited about American Made is a real wake-up call for the rest of the world as well, like to really support local. I think even if it's just at your local farmer's market, wherever you can, you see the impact of your buying decisions, and we all have a lot of choice available to us still. But to your question about where I, I've got so many different things in my life, projects I'm working on, but one of the common themes I think that ties it all together is, and it's going to be a lifelong quest to become a better communicator, whether it's, working with data and communicating that to people, or whether it's website content or just writing in general, even answering client queries. The clearer you can be, you stop the email chain of 20 emails back and forward to get to the heart of the problem. Whether we're a parent, the better we can communicate with our partners, our children, those we work with. That really makes a difference in the world, the way you communicate with people. And so I think I read a lot of books about psychology now, and I'm trying to bring in, there's a lot of thinking about empathy, and we're going to talk about distraction-free websites, but I don't think you ever reach the bottom of, or the pinnacle of understanding how to be the best communicator. And it's something that, I want to keep working on. I want to become a better communicator of ideas and learn from others as I go.
That's so drop the mic. We had our first drop the mic moment. Like, becoming a better communicator is such a challenge. And you're right. There's never going to be a peak there. There's always going to be room for improvement. However, we're communicating as humans, whether it's, how we do it digitally, how we do it in person, and all of that. That's really very, very cool. And I love what you said about local. I think there's something to, like with so much happening in the world and sustainability, being able to have something made locally, just really from it's just good for our world, to be able to reduce a lot of the impact that happens when we're shipping things all over the world, and that carbon footprint. So cool, man.
Well, we're going to start talking about distraction-free websites because I'm excited about this, and I know I could talk about data science forever too, but I won't go down that road. So when you guys are out there, Dianna, you're out there helping people try to cut the clutter, cut the things on a website. What are some of the most common things that you see when you go, oh my goodness, that just hurts me?
Well, first off, it's just when we look at, or I look at a ton of manufacturing websites, and the biggest one is that a lot of them are completely outdated. And Rachel and I were talking about this yesterday in preparation for this call. So she's working with food bloggers, or even as we were talking about bloggers. So for example, I've been doing all this research about German Shepherds to help me with my dog. And I couldn't figure out, I'm like, why does everything look the same? And it's also poorly written and all these subheads that are questions. And I finally realized after reading those Verge articles that have been coming out about Google that they're all writing to the algorithm. And they're writing for page views. And so they're, as Rachel can tell you, I mean, page views are the end all and be all, so that because they're selling stuff and they have to prove that people are coming to the website for ads. She can talk more about it, but I'm not in that space. So a food blogger or anyone else can't have an outdated website. A manufacturer, on the other hand, they can have an outdated website. And, I always joke, it was built when, and I have to change my president. I used to say when George W. Bush was president. But literally some of these are so old, and I would talk to a manufacturer. They don't care. I think that's the biggest thing. They don't care. They're like, well, I don't need any more leads. And I want to say, well, what happens when you do?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of them have these legacy accounts, right? That
that's what they say.
Profitable.
We have all of our customers. Or the big one, I still hear it. All of our customers know who we are. And I want to say, but what about the ones who don't?
Yes.
Even the customers that do know who you are, even the customers that do know who you are now want more in a website. They want more. They want to be able to have a better experience when they come to your website, and even being able to build in a community element to that too. Like, buyers want and expect more today.
And Rachel, she can bring a lot to this conversation, but I think a lot of it has to do with social media, and also the pandemic. Our whole expectation changed with the pandemic, because everything went online. And then the photographer we worked with, he said, you can't get away now with bad photos, as I look at my own blog. But people expect high quality photos. And because of social media, and everybody has these great cameras now. But yes, the biggest thing is just the ones where I see where it's been completely outdated, and I can even, budget, you don't have time, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have a lot of we work with companies that are 50 employees or fewer, so they don't have marketing departments. I get all that, but the whole, I don't need to change, that's the one that bothers me the most.
Yeah.
Amen.
I was talking to someone last week about this, and they said, you have to remember the people that own these companies are not, most times, not the same kind of person that's going to be looking for your company to solve their problem. And the kind of people that are going to be looking are in the it was Chuck Coxhead we were talking on my show last week, and he said, if you've got people that are in their 30s and 40s out there for the CEO of a company, for the head of a company, or a head of the procurement department, they've got someone else that's researching companies. Those people are going to search Google. They're going to look at LinkedIn. They're going to look at all these places to see what your company is. Yes, you as the business owner of that company, you would never do that. But the people you got that are looking for products and services, they are. They're looking to see what your social presence like. They're looking to see what your website looks like. Is it inviting? They're also looking to see, are you good in your community? And they'll go to Glassdoor. He was even brought up Glassdoor. You know, they'll look to see how you treat employees.
Or what's your environmental footprint? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no, all of that stuff. Yeah.
we can, and we have to remember that as executives in these companies, the buyers aren't us.
Yeah.
These aren't us, but the researchers is who we have to be courting, be attractive to.
True. Yep. Alexander, I'm sorry for business owners. Unfortunately, you don't have enough knowledge experience. That's why they need people like Dianna and Rachel, right? For sure. Yeah. So,
Rachel, chime in. So, another one, poor messaging and content. You said you wanted to talk about the about section. You had mentioned at the beginning. Yeah. So you want to add, Rachel? I'm doing all the talking. Why don't you say something, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest challenges I see on manufacturing websites when I put aside my designer eyes is that I don't really know who's behind the website. And, it's like,
amen.
Google's thing is about trust. One of the biggest things they're looking for, indicators. And as humans, when we see each other for the first time, we're making all sorts of judgments correctly and incorrectly about people. But if you don't know who the people are behind it, you're left wondering, is this a genuine company? What are these people like? Do they understand me? We need that human connection on a website. And if you don't have photos of the people, you don't have bios, you don't have contact details. I know people are worried about getting robocalls, but everyone's phone numbers are getting robocalls, whether it's on your website or not. Everyone's getting spam coming in the inbox.
Didn't you say you worked with someone who took the phone number off their website because they didn't?
My goodness.
They took the phone number off, and I track conversions for our customers, and they come in through phone, they come in through email, and they come in through our contact forms, RFQ forms. And one of our customers, he got the biggest RFQ request in the entire company's history from a phone call. So you got to make it super easy for people to contact you however they want to do it. Or we just want them to fill out our form. Well, what if they don't want to fill out your form? And to go back to the about section, it really hit home for me once I started buying Made in USA, because I was buying direct to consumer. So for example, Authenticity 50, who make their sheets, seed to stitch. I love their tagline, cotton grown in California. It's all woven, and the whole sheet is made in the United States. And their about page, you see who they are, their story, why they started, their challenges trying to find wide sheeting weavers in the United States. And they tell you about, obstacles, and their entire story. You're like, yeah, I want to buy these sheets, even though they're 3 times as much as what you'd get at Bed Bath & Beyond, the old one. But the about section, you have to, who are you? Who are the people? And we're working on a website right now for a machine shop. And the more I interview the people who are working on the machines, and I learn their bios and their backgrounds and how they, got to the company and how the company has promoted them and their background. I just keep saying to the guy I'm working with, your company is amazing. It is amazing. And I want to make sure the website, from design to content to photos, shows that fact. And, the about page, who are you? What do you stand for? What are you doing to help the environment, if anything? And a lot of these manufacturers, they are doing stuff. Like every time I walk into a facility, if they're doing any kind of metal work, they have these humongous containers where all the scrap goes in that gets recycled. There's all kinds of stuff that they're doing that they don't even talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's just what they do.
Yeah, they don't even think of it. That's one of the beautiful things about manufacturers, just how humble they are. They don't
Yes.
realize some of the extraordinary things that they're doing, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, why would I put that on?" It's amazing.
Yeah, and
Like,
there's
why
this
wouldn't
quote.
you?
Yeah, and there's this quote by that guy Bassett Furniture. I forget his first name, but he said, everyone thinks all the great ideas come out of MIT, but a great deal of innovation comes off the factory floor. So every time I go into a facility, I'm astounded by what I see, and I purposely don't read a company's website until after the tour, so then I could go see the disconnects. And then I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing on their website about what I just saw. And I can see like all the, it's amazing. It's amazing what manufacturers do and how they don't talk about themselves. You're right. I don't know if it's being humble or they just do it all. It's like me, and Rachel doing what we do all day long, is it, you just start to think, oh, well, everybody does it this way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Alex says it's very important to show your customers.
That's a great point.
Yes,
Really true.
exactly. And you don't have to give away your secrets. So that's the other big thing. Oh, well, we don't want our competition to know. Well, you don't have to give away at the store, but people want to see who you are. We always like to get a photographer in to, show people working and not just the headshots. And it's so important.
Yeah.
I think people often look to the shiny on the other websites, all the bling, all the little features. But actually the things we're talking about, they almost sound sort of too basic. And yet the basics is actually what makes machinery run. You can have the little sticker on it and make it look pretty at the end, but if the basics of your machinery isn't working, it's not going to work. And it's the same with the websites. And this is why we focus really on distraction free, because many of those other things, the animations or the moving this or even the video, they're nice to have maybe in certain circumstances, but they're not essential for good communication. And good communication does not have to be boring. Storytelling is an art. I mean, for us to sit down and watch a comedy show for 90 minutes, one person on stage, that's just a very simple stage setup. And yet they've got your entire attention, hopefully, if they're a good comedian. So I think in the last few years, it's gone up a next level, though. Distraction-free websites has become even more important than ever. We look at how people are today. They're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're hurried, they're unfocused, they're exhausted. And we've got information coming in at us faster than ever before. And I think it was like 2010, there's an amazing book by Nicholas Carr called The Shallows. And it talks about how it's a very
what the internet is doing to your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it actually is changing. And, when you sit down to read a novel on your summer vacation and you kind of are struggling to read it, there's a reason for that. It's that your brain has been trained to just quickly scan through, grab the important details, and to train your brain to sort of give that slow focus is quite a challenge now. So we need to, be aware that people are not coming to your website with the calm, unhurried, endless amount of time in their disposal. There was a term that came out earlier this year by a public health researcher, and she called this chronic type of stress weathering. And I really like it. There's some good articles about it, just how we're coming to a website weathered, or a situation weathered. We're not coming in pristine condition, ready to absorb all that you have to show us. And then we have the obvious things like politics and COVID, and even the fear of being cancelled, saying the wrong thing, getting it wrong, all the fighting online, all of those things, we're bringing them to us, to our situations, to our lives. And so when we look at a website, we need to think, how do we reset someone? And how do we make it a calmer experience? We don't need all the shiny movie things all over the place. How do we really get our key messaging? Even if they don't read all the copy, what can we pull out that they will read? What are the key messages? If they go to our About page, do they want to see our 50-year history as the first thing? Or do they want to see, hey, look, they hire people that look like me, and they seem to be okay with people who don't have, college degrees, or they seem to be okay with people who want to do different projects outside of their 9 to 5, and they're going to support them in their endeavors, or whatever it is. Everything on a website is communicating. It's just like a person. It's saying a lot about it. And manufacturing websites often are like, they're either one or the other. It's like, look, we're trying to be shiny, attractive, look over here, look over there, and you end up exhausted and more fatigued. Or we don't care about our website. It's 20 years, 15 years old. We don't touch it. We're not interested in investing in this. So I think, distraction free when you come online is a rarity. And if you can find it and get the info you need and leave in an efficient manner, that's an incredible, win for a manufacturer.
Yes. And so what we've been doing, we've been focusing for several years now on improving the user experience with the website. So we build them. And then if the client hires us to do ongoing marketing, we actually don't do a whole lot more marketing. We're constantly focused on improving the user experience to increase the conversions. And it's just amazing how very, very simple things can increase the conversion rate, or the number of conversions, and so that's where, I have now I say we build these distraction-free websites, but they're really calm. Rachel used the word calm. So when people come to them, and we have people will say, well, there isn't anything, we want it to be interactive. Well, it's a website. People, they are interacting, just not the way you think, that the way you're used to being interactive. They don't need all this fancy moving bits. They want to come in, find what they're looking for, contact you, and go. And they want to contact you very quickly. And, so like, for example, one of the things that we've done on contact forms, instead of asking for the phone number, if we put the phone number field in, but it's not required, and then people put in their phone number, a new field opens up. It's a conditional, the new field opens up. What's the best time to contact you? So then you're not playing phone tag, then, so we make dozens and dozens and dozens of these very small changes all the time. And then we track all this stuff. And I have really learned a lot in the last 3 years.
It's like that book we read, Dianna, about the Toyota production system.
Yes. Yeah. Why Toyota is number one. It was a book written many years ago, but the author details the Toyota production system, about how Toyota makes all these little tiny changes to increase productivity. I mean, it could be anything from moving the wastebasket 5 inches because it was blocking the way or something, to something really big. And, and I just finished the bio for Elon Musk. He increases productivity by going down on the floor, and he's on the production line looking at everything. Why does this thing have 4 bolts? Why is this doing this? And he makes the engineers, he puts their offices right on the line too, because he wants the engineers to see what they're engineering, how hard it is to manufacture. Yeah. So we're sort of doing the same thing. We build these websites, then we track them, and then like, oh, if we change this, the conversions start going up a little bit.
Oh, that's so wise, because I think a lot of times as marketers, we can get so caught up in like the big shiny thing, or
got to start over. Yeah.
Or we need to do this. We got to do this massive, big investment. But I think what you're saying is incredibly wise, is like really focusing in on the details of what can you optimize. And I love that you're saying you're really focused on the user experience. So it's not based on assumptions of like what we think that they're actually going to want on the website. It's actually based on real live data from how people are engaging.
Yeah. And that's why I love working with Rachel, because she has all this data, even if it is from food bloggers.
Yeah.
And then she understands taxonomy as well, because she has to organize all those recipes. So if a manufacturer has, 1,000 parts with all these variations, she and Steven know what to do. I just put it in their hands.
Man, this is so amazing. Well, I can't believe it, Damon. We're coming up on a time now. We
Wow,
still
we
have
are.
all these questions we didn't even get to about Matoma.
I
We'll
know.
we're gonna have to do a part 2 and have you come back
Yes,
and
we
talk
will.
about
Yes,
Matoma.
we will.
Well, thank you so much to both of you guys for being on the show today. This has been so incredibly rewarding and enriching for me to just learn from you guys and see you collaborating together in action. It's pretty exciting. And
Thank you.
yeah. And Damon, do you have any like final questions, last words that you want to
No,
touch
I
on?
did. You, the two of you said something and collaborated on something here that I think people should listen, that are listening, need to understand is these little tweaks to your website, these changes to the words, and focusing on the user experience can go a long ways. You don't need to completely trash it and start over. It's like make these little changes to all the time and just keep trying to make it better.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you guys both so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us. This has been fun. Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks everyone out there for tuning in and for listening. And Dianna and Rachel, if you guys can just share where people can get a hold of you, how they can reach you, that'd be wonderful.
Yep. So huffindustrialmarketing.com, that's the website. Unless you're a food blogger, you can contact Rachel directly at created, CRE8, D as in David, -design.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I think, Rachel, you're on Instagram. Yeah. And I'm on LinkedIn. So those are the only two places where I am. Website and LinkedIn.
Folks out there listening, these are two like powerhouse women who have been in marketing and doing this for decades. So please reach out to them, take advantage of their expertise. And I know Dianna's just doing phenomenal work for manufacturers and just having that experience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So great. So thank you guys both for being here. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And until next time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a great week, everyone.
All right. Okay.
Bye.